सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। So, this seventh page, first paragraph is over, you know?
No, the last one. Paramartha. Gita shloka also you did.
Gita shlokas is over?
Yes.
Iti paramartha avasthayam. So now, whenever you think of the truth in the context of analyzing the truth, the only way by which we can think of the truth is from the Vyavahara Drishti and from Paramartha Drishti. Adhyaropa Drishti and Swarupa Drishti. There is no third Drishti. There is no third point of view. Swarupa Drishti is freedom from all points of view. Vyavahara Drishti is a point of view. So when we, from the Vyavahara Drishti, we can say Bhagavan is the Karta, Bhokta, etc. Everything is the Jagat Karanam, all that. There is nothing in, from the entire Bhakti cult is from the Vyavahara Drishti, Adhyaropa Drishti. Say, you have devotion to me, I will liberate you. There also, I will liberate you should be understood as your own bhakti will purify your mind. And your own bhakti will compel you to think correctly. Your own bhakti will make you inquisitive. Your own bhakti will make you a student of truth. Your own bhakti will prepare you for understanding the truth. It will take you to the teacher, to the teaching also. Means all that is required, that bhakti, that nitya karma. Devotion is another word for nitya karma. Because you have bhakti for Bhagavan for only shanti. So devotion to God only for peace purifies the mind, and that purified mind prepares you, it brings in so many things, whatever is required. So it is not Bhagavan's will that does, it is the law of karma. Until you become a jignasu, it is the law of karma. My nitya karma converts me into a jignasu. My bhakti will convert me into a jignasu. Because law of karma. But once I touch the Vedanta, then the law of karma is gone. Then it is Vastu Tantra, meaning I have to recognize the truth as it is. If I have to recognize the truth as it is, then I have to listen to the Vedanta correctly. Then law of karma is replaced by Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasana. And therefore, even when we say Bhagavan will do this, there also we have to interpret like this. In bhakti, because yesterday there was a discussion, was there on my mind, there in the uppermost in my mind. Therefore I am telling. Yesterday there was a discussion. Bhagavan says, you surrender to me, I will take care of everything. It does not mean you have been bailed out of the responsibility to know. It's not possible. Nobody can bless you in such a manner that you can see without eyes. At best, Bhagavan can take you to a doctor who can restore your sight. Even Bhagavan cannot make a blind man see. No. He can give, maybe he can give eyes to him. He may give him eyesight. Maybe some jadoo he can do, he can give him eyesight. But without eyesight, you cannot see. That is the law. So when Bhagavan says, you surrender to me and then I will take care of the rest, mokshayishyami ma shuchah should not be taken that he is going to do it. No. Your bhakti will transform you into a jignasu bas. A very, 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 for a bhakta it is a truth, but it is a very uninteresting truth for a bhakta. Because he would always love to listen that I give my best to Bhagavan, I surrender my will to Bhagavan, and Bhagavan will take care of me. You should be like a mother. So I call my mother, and mother through all her affection takes care of me, should take care of me. Like mother, Bhagavan should take care of me. Yeah, all this literature I like because it's very nice. Bhakti sentiment is good. But yet we cannot afford to have bhakti minus viveka, minus wisdom. We cannot be a blind bhaktas. You can enjoy the literature along with the wisdom. What is the wisdom? Bhagavan is not, because from Bhagavan's point of view, he only is, he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do anything. The tatparya, even when he says, I will liberate you, the tatparya means your bhakti will prepare you for your knowledge. Bas. Your bhakti, this is the truth. Therefore, Swamiji, if I think that my own bhakti will prepare me for the truth, then my bhakti will become less. Why? Your bhakti, you can have bhakti. Hitherto you have been having bhakti to a God who has goodwill for you, who you thought he can liberate you. But now you can have bhakti to the truth that is. And your own bhakti, you can crave for the truth, you can crave for peace, you can crave for purity, you can pray to that silent truth for knowledge. Crave, when you pray for knowledge, it is a wise prayer. If you say, I am praying to you and you do everything, it is a blind, it is some kind of blind prayer, but ultimately it has to come to dawn. A person has to, he cannot bypass the truth. However much great attitude I may have, but the attitudes cannot be a substitute for the knowledge of a fact. The knowledge of a fact is that my own nitya karma, my own silent prayers for knowledge, that becomes the nitya karma. I simply say, I pray to God, I sing, I have devotion to God with the idea that He will liberate me, is one school of thought. The Vedic school of thought is different. The Vedic school of, the Bhakti school of thought thinks if I have Bhakti then Bhagavan will take care of everything. If I surrender my will then Bhagavan will take care of. This is a Bhakti school of thought. It just slowly evolved in the world. This is Bhakti school of thought. It's like saying, you leave everything to me. You come to me and I will take all your punya papa on myself. I will take upon myself your sin. You see, that is how the interpretation. The thinking, the very idea of bhakti evolved like this. That is, I surrender to Bhagavan and Bhagavan will take care of me. He will liberate me. This is one school of thought. But this school of thought, an individual who is exposed to this school of thought and who feels comfortable with this school of thought and becomes a good human being also through his bhakti, like Sudama, etc. There are so many people who say, if I have bhakti, Bhagavan will. I leave everything to Bhagavan. There are individuals who totally leave everything to Bhagavan and say everything that happens Bhagavan's will. Theek hai ji. But the Vedic school of bhakti is, it is nitya karma. That is, you pray and pray and pray and pray to God for knowledge. And there is also understanding. You pray and pray and pray and pray so that your prayer will enable you to understand that truth. That is the Vedic school of thought. The Vedic school of bhakti thought. The bhakti school of thought is that you pray and pray and pray to God and then you have devotion to God and with the idea that Bhagavan will take care of. In Bhagavad Gita, we have mostly Bhagavan always says, you come to me and I will take care of you. It is more of a bhakti school of thought. This creates a confusion. At one place he says, your own bhakti, your nitya karma will transform you into a jignasu and that nitya karma itself will guide you to the shastram and afterwards you use your viveka to know the truth. So up to a point the law of karma guides you and afterwards you have to understand the truth. Up to reaching the Vedanta, until I reach Vedanta, it is the law of karma. And afterwards it is my Vastu Tantra Jnana. This is Vedic school of thought. The Bhakti school of thought says you just pray and then Bhagavan will take care of you. That also has its results perhaps, but between them, if I take literally the Bhakti school of thought, it goes against the Shastra. If God has to liberate me, then I don't require Shastra Jnana. But is it not true, Swamiji, that Bhagavan liberates? Yes, then we explain, yes, you have Bhakti, it's excellent, surrender. You have Bhakti and then you do everything as with devotion to God, accept everything as prasadam, that is all right, Bhakti. But that Bhakti will slowly again, whether you ask for jnanam or not, that Bhakti will transform you into a jignasu. Even if you thought that Bhagavan will liberate me, but he will definitely liberate you by way of giving you the ability again. The paddhati is the same, the process is the same. He will enable you to understand. He will, even though you think he will enable me to understand, actually your own bhakti enables you to understand. There is another person is not there to enable you to understand. Your own attitude, your own bhakti will transform you. Your own right thinking will transform you. Your own attitude can transform you. Therefore, this is one correction. Even if the bhakti literature says that you surrender to God and God will take care of you, that seems during that particular period of time, during that life, it destroys your jnana. You see. Because if I surrender to God, and if God can take care of me, then why should I study Vedanta ji? Therefore, this bhakti cult sometimes comes in the way of studying the Shastra. Therefore, the Shastra says bhakti, the school of bhakti has to be understood correctly. Your bhakti must instill jnana in you, because you have to understand the truth. That bhakti may be there, but ultimately you have to understand the truth yourself. You have to understand your being. In contrast to the entire creation, your thinking, your perception. Your doings are different from your being. Your doings cannot exist without your being, but your being can exist without your doings. You have to do you have to have the exposure to the literature of Vedanta, which talks about Atma Anatma Viveka. So if this is understood, then along with the bhakti also you can study Vedanta. That is what is called, along with the Nitya Karma you study Vedanta. Nitya Karma is not contrary to Vedanta. Nitya Karma promotes Vedanta. Nitya Karma promotes the interest in Vedanta. Whereas Kamya Karma is in contrast to Vedanta. Similarly, Bhakti also is not in contrast to Vedanta. But if along with the Bhakti, if there is a school of thought, Bhakti is very good. But along with the Bhakti, if there is a school of thought, a peculiar school of thought, that Bhagavan will do everything is a school of thought. Bhakti is different from Bhakti school of thought. Bhakti school of thought is just really you have Bhakti and Bhagavan will look after everything. You can bypass Vedanta. That is Bhakti school. Bhakti school always sells whatever knowledge you require, Bhagavan will give you. Then my jnana becomes hampered. Then my freedom is in somebody else's hands. My enlightenment is put in somebody else's hands, maybe the truth. It does create a problem. And therefore, my bhakti must enlighten me, my bhakti must also enlighten me that your bhakti will give you mental peace, mental purity. It makes you a peaceful person, during which peaceful time you can look at yourself Vedanta. Therefore, bhakti should be interpreted as Nitya Karma only. If bhakti is interpreted as Nitya Karma, then there is no bhakti school. Bhakti is there in Bhagavad Gita, there is no bhakti school of thought. Even when Bhagavan says, I will liberate, it means only this. That is, see, when Bhagavan says, you do the karma, I will give you the result. What does it mean? It is the law of karma that brings you the result, not Bhagavan's will. It's not Bhagavan's wish. There is no God's will behind my results. There is a law of karma. And behind the law of karma, which means the whole creation, is the presence of Ishvara. There is a presence of Ishvara, there is presence of universe, and there is presence of law of karma. Which law of karma dictates the results of my actions? That is the law, and law silently is a function. You know what is law. The law of karma, it's God's law. It doesn't give you the result without action. It can't deny you the result if you have performed an action. So just as when we say God gives us the result, it means only your own action brings you the result, governed by the law of karma. Similarly, in the same manner, here also, Bhagavan liberates you. If you are a bhakta, Bhagavan liberates you. When we say it means only your own bhakti will prepare you for it. Your own bhakti will pave the way to liberation. It will pave the way as long as it can pave the way, and afterwards you have to pave the way. You have to understand. In this manner, we have to, the law of karma should be understood as only the law of karma, not the will of God. Even the will of God has to be taken as only the law of karma, the law. Okay, this karya-karana bhava, the law, causation. As is the cause, so is the effect. That's called causation, law of causation. And it is the law of causation that runs the universe, inside the universe. There is silent presence of the truth in which there is silent presence of the universe, in which there is a law of causation. And I have to abide by that law of causation. I survive through the law of causation. I have no survival sans that law of causation. Life can be summed up as just nothing but, not fundamentally. On the surface it can be defined as only dictated by the law of causation, sustained by the law of causation. Life is law of causation. If a person falls sick, it's a law of causation. If a man dies also, it's a law of causation. Why? Because his karma got exhausted, he died. And from the surface point of, from the Vyavahara Drishti, from the mundane point of view, from the empirical point of view, man becomes old and he dies. That is the causation. He became old and he died. His heart failed and he died. Causation. And he is reborn because there is still karma. Causation. It's all, this causation is not the fundamental reason. The fundamental reason is ignorance. That fundamental cause, the fundamental reason is that nimitta. It is not changing a cause. It is not technically a cause. Ignorance is not technically a cause. Technical cause means, it becomes a process. In time there is a result. There is a causation always in time. When I perform an action, the drishtakala, the visible result comes through causation. The adrishtaphalam also is through causation. But when I miss the fact, I mistake it for something else. That's not causation. That's an error. So life fundamentally is an error. But within that error, if I am surviving as an individual, then the immediate reason for my survival is causation. This causation must be, the bhakti cult also should not lose sight of this causation. If their bhakti prepares the bhakta for jnanam, it is through law of causation. If nitya karma prepares you for jnanam, it is again through law of causation. Purification itself is a process. It is a slow transformation. And therefore, this is one correction, please. The second correction is, even when we say that Bhagavan created, etc., etc., that is from Vyavahar Drishti. From his point of view, na kartrutvam, na karmani lokasya srijati prabhu. From his own point of view, he alone is. It's like, you can just apply, this is the formula. I am the source of my thinking, from my thinking point of view. In view of my thinking, I am the source. And from my own point of view, there is no thinking. I am alone, not you. From the being point of view, properly understood, from the being point of view. If this is not very clear, then I can give you another example. From Jagrat Drishti, Sushupti is the source of Jagrat. From Sushupti Drishti, there is no Jagrat. This is the only way by which we can look at the truth, really. It's a very important thing. From the sound point of view, silence is the source. From the silence point of view, silence alone is. From the object point of view, I am the subject. From the subject point of view, it is nirvishesham, subject alone is. This is what is called adhyaropa drishti swarupa. Man has to get the sanskara to look at things from these 2 points of view. From a related point of view, from its swarupa drishti. In life, everything falls in its place, really. As I told you, as a businessman, you are a businessman. From the point of view of business, you are a businessman. From your own point of view, you are not. You say, I am a human being. But even from the body point of view, you are a human being. But from the conscious being, from the presence point of view, you are not even a human individual. You are a silent presence. Thus, when you take the Swarupa Drishti, because in every label there is a Swarupa Drishti also. Minus that label is the Swarupa Drishti. Minus all the labels, the very person, that is Swarupa Drishti. From the house, from the household point of view, I am a householder. But we never take the Swarupa Drishti. Therefore, in Bhakti literature, even in Vedic literature, truth is defined as kind, compassionate, creator, sustainer, and this, all that we can accept from Adhyaropa Drishti, because man can always imagine all these things. But even in that imagination, if it is totally illogical, it's not Adhyaropa Drishti. God is in heaven, it's not Adhyaropa Drishti, it's a wild imagination, understand? God is in heaven. God is the source of the universe, that is Adhyaropa Drishti. The right definition of truth from the Jagrat Drishti, the right definition of God from the Namarupa Drishti is Adhyaropa Drishti. The right definition. And there is a third thing called the totally wrong definition. A wrong definition cannot be from Adhyaropa Drishti. A right definition from the Namarupa point of view is called Adhyaropa Drishti. God is in heaven. If somebody says, what Drishti is it? are able to follow this. I want to convey this. I want to convey so many things, but I can't convey it. I got also some problems. God is in heaven. What drishti is it? Suddenly we may try to think that is also acceptable from the adhyara. This mistake also we make. What is wrong when we are taking adhyaropadrishti? When we are taking adhyaropadrishti, why not we accept that God, the definition of God as present in heaven, that also can be taken from adhyaropadrishti, God's definition. Why not? No. The right definition about God as Jagat Karanam, because adhyaropadrishti is that which, knowing which, there is tatparyam. Adhyaropadrishti understood is the Swarupa. Adhyaropadrishti understood. Atma understood as Jagat Karanam, the Tatparyam is Nirvishesham. Therefore, the right definition of Bhagavan, the definition of God from Adhyaropadrishti should be the explanation for the universe. Adhyaropadrishti is explaining away the creation, explaining away my body, explaining away my mind, explaining away every detail. Things are things that need to be explained away. They need to be explained away. Kasyaya is up. God's definition, the definition of God explains away everything. Clear? Now, God is there in heaven, Paroksham. Does it explain away? God is somewhere at a distance. God is Paroksham, does not explain away the Pratyaksham. God is the source of the Jagat. Explains away the Jagat. It's made of God. The universe is made of the self. And therefore, a wrong definition doesn't come under either Adhyaropadrishti or Swarupadrishti. But please understand, there is no literature under the sun which gives the right definition of God from Adhyaropadrishti. Even the speculators imagine that God is eternal. But where is the explanation for the universe? A speculator says God is eternal. Okay, that statement that God is eternal. Which drishti is it? It's a wild imagination, just speculation. God is eternal. So we have clinched, God is eternal. But what is the explanation for the universe? It is non-eternal. That is not explanation. It is already evident to be non-eternal. But what is the explanation for the non-eternal? That it is non-eternal is not the explanation. That is its description. That is the language in which you can describe it is non-eternal. It is its description. But what is its explanation? Are you able to follow? Why is it there? What is it made of? Is it a fact or not? How did it come about? Therefore, a person who simply says God is eternal doesn't explain away the non-eternal. And it is also cannot be called, it is Adhyaropadrishti, it is not the right definition. An isolated statement that God is eternal is not the definition of God. Definition of God is a very comprehensive thing. It is at once the source of everything and free from everything. That is the definition. See, in this there is both the drishtis. Supposing you say God is eternal, okay, then how do you explain it? God is eternal. But what is this non-eternal? But what is the relation between the non-eternal and the eternal? This non-eternal came from where? Then you will say it is eternal's will. If you say he willed it, the eternal willed it. But where from did the will come? Will is a functioning. Can there be an eternal will? Are you able to follow what I am saying? God is in heaven is not a definition of the truth. God is eternal is not the definition of the truth, is not a definition of the truth. There is no literature except the Vedic literature and all that is related to Vedic literature. Without the Vedic literature, there is no literature in this world which gives the right definition of the truth, that it is at once the source of everything. It is the Satyam, it is the Sat, and everything else is Mithya. Even Satya Mithya Bhava is from the Mithya Drishti. From the Satya Drishti, it is one without a second. Vacho Nivartanti, Eto Vacho Nivartanti. You can't even talk. And therefore, you may come across so many cults, so many schools and all that, but then you don't have to be overawed by them. Why? Because truth has no will. Truth is only present. If you talk about God's will, understand it should be understood as the law of causation. God's will means God's law. God's will. You can't interpret presence as something subtler. God's will can be interpreted to mean God's presence. Or it can be interpreted, God's will can be interpreted as God's law. But can God have a law? I say that is, the law also is a part of creation. It is mithya. Can't we say God's will also is mithya? Yes, you can say God's will is mithya. God's will also, you can say God's will. If a person talks about God's will, he would never accept God's will as mithya. He says, no, he has a real will. If we attribute will to God and then say it is a mithya will, I have no objection. Within the mithya jagat, I perform the action, I have devotion, and my devotion brings me the result. God's will means God's law, and law means law of causation. If you say mithya, God's will, God has a will, and that it is mithya once we say, do you know what it means? It becomes a part of the creation. It cannot be bracketed with God. Hey Bhagavan, if God's will is mithya, then the mithya has to be bracketed with mithya. It cannot be bracketed with satyam. Therefore, you can't literally take it is the will of God. And once it is mithya, it is not the will, it is only the law. God's will can be called will only when it can be bracketed with the Bhagavan. Only an individual will can be bracketed with the individual. But there also when we do the viveka between drashta and drishyam, even the will has to be bracketed with the anatma. Drashta becomes a pure presence. See? You are able to follow what I am talking. When we do the viveka between drashta and drishyam, even the individual's will has to be bracketed with drishyam. If your will is bracketed with the objects, with the known, with the observed, then you are minus your will is a simple presence. You minus your will is a simple presence. So your will cannot be a part of you, because the will is not a conscious thing, it's a thought. It is a function. Therefore, just as even an individual's will cannot be a part of the conscious being, even God's will cannot be a part of conscious. An individual will also is, along with the individuality, is a part of mithya. God's will also is a part of mithya. Therefore, as a mithya, it is not the mithya will that does the job, that guides you. It is the law of causation. Yes, sir. Iti paramartha avasthayam. So, right definition alone can be adhyaropa drishti, and freedom from all that adhyaropa drishti is called swarupa drishti. The very definition of Bhagavan from adhyaropa drishti, the very freedom from it, is the swarupa drishti. Iti paramartha avasthayam. Paramartha avastha means, don't translate as in the ultimate state. Paramartha avastha means in fact, in actual fact of one's being. It's not Paramartha avastha means ultimate, means you will think really somewhere in future. In fact, the water identity is the Paramartha avastha. To be water is the Paramartha avastha. That waterness is Paramartha avastha. Waveness is called Vyavahara avastha. So the waterness is not a future identity. Waterness is eternal identity. Therefore, Paramartha avasthayam, this particular word dupes us into thinking that we also say ultimately it is like that. But right now it is not like that. This word ultimately is not right word. Because in most of the ashrams, they escape through this word ultimately. Just as we all escape through kal. Kal karenge. You know? आज वॉकिंग नहीं गया मैं कल जाऊंगा, एंड बेटर स्टिल कल से जाऊंगा. फिर अगेन कल गए थे वॉकिंग, नहीं गया था, मैं कल जाऊंगा. Similarly, every student in every ashram, the people without looking into Shastram properly, because mentally sluggish also, because once you become bhogarata, once you become, mentally sluggish, you don't want to do the job. It's like a person who is a kamchor, the one who has remained without a job for a long time. Suddenly if he gets a job, he finds it very difficult. Yes, I'm telling you, it's a mental sluggish. You don't want to sit down and think. You don't want to solve even a simple riddle, so chodo ji. So this problem is there. Therefore, they will always live on this word, ultimate. Ultimately, it is like that, not like that. Ultimately. Say, ultimately, if you use the word, it means ultimately means fundamentally, bas. Not ultimately in time. Ultimately means fundamentally. That should be the meaning. Like the water identity of the water, the identity of the water as water is not the ultimate identity, it is the fundamental identity. Not ultimate in time. Means ultimately it will become water, no. Fundamentally that is what it is. Bunyadi roop se that is what it is. That it is wave is its false identity. You can't say that it is wave is the present identity and that the waterness is the ultimate identity. You understand now? I am Jiva now, but ultimately I will be. Yes, this is a very big headache in all missions. They have this mediocre teaching, mediocre thinking, it doesn't work. I can't take it. Because if truth is all, the Shruti says, Tat Srishtva Tadevanu Pravishat. God created a form and Himself entered it without changing its nature. Without changing its nature. He may look different, but He doesn't become different. Yes, He may look different, but He doesn't. He is thought different, but He has not become different. Tasrishtva tadeva wahi, jaise hai वैसे ही. Tadeva anupravisht. And therefore, right now I am Jiva, but ultimately I will be Brahman, is not what is called Paramarthavastha. Paramarthavastha means fundamental identity. Fundamental identity, not even the fundamental, some transformed state. The fundamental, ever-present identity is called Paramarthavastha. We are fundamentally non-dual. In our thinking we are. So Paramarthavastayam, Ishitru, the ruler, Ishitavya, the ruled. See, Bhagavan is called the Ishvara of the creation. From the creation point of view, the very source, the silent source is called the ruling source from the point of view of the creation. But from the source point of view, there is no creation to rule. And therefore the source cannot also be described as the source. It is not the ruler. Ishitru, Ishitavyadi, Vyavahara, Abhavaha. There is freedom. Abhavaha means should be taken as, don't take it as absence. There is freedom. Like in Sushupti, it is wrong to say the Jagrati is absent there or present there. There I am free from. I am free from. You don't experience the absence of something, you don't experience the presence. In Sushupti, you don't experience the absence. You are experiencing yourself as free. Anubhava is always about oneself. Anubhava is about myself. It's self-evident. Even when I am seeing the world, I am experiencing myself, but through, as a mithya, as an error, notionally, I experience myself as the seer of the world. We can't experience anything. Like the water doesn't feel anything except as itself. Water from it's not experiencing the wave. It is being water, that is experience. If the water feels coolness, it is its own coolness. That coolness cannot belong to the wave. Therefore, just dwell on this point. Anubhava. We are constantly experiencing our own presence without dichotomy. The experiencer-experienced relationship is not there. Just because I use a grammatical language, the self experiences itself, I don't really mean that the self is divided into two things called the experiencer and experienced. It is just a vyavahar, it is a saying. We say that is not what we mean. Like we say that God creates the universe, that's not what we mean. Ultimately. Tatparya rup se. Therefore, Ishitru, in fact, our Anubhava is only our existence. Dwell on this, you will have great Anandam. The very idea that we are not experiencing anything except our own presence. Even when you are seeing a mountain, you are experiencing your subject, your presence and your being. You are cushioned in yourself and then seeing a mountain. And the cushion for the truth is itself, your being. And therefore, it's not abhava from the, like in the Paramartha Avastha, there is no Ishitru Ishitavyadi abhava. It's not absence of something. It is one's presence free from everything. So, abhava should be understood as one's freedom from everything. Otherwise, we will objectify absence. This is a problem. Because objectification needs an excuse to come into being. Man is so prone to objectification. Thoda sa bhagna chahiye. Then he starts imagining. The moment you talk about the absence of the world, then you start imagining absence. No. Then again, the absence also becomes an object of thinking. But you see, your presence, free from the presence and absence, then it boils down to being silent. You become silent as a presence free from things, as free from the forms and free from the absence, free from thought and free from the thought of the absence, free from the thought of the presence, free from the thought of the absence. Because absence also is a thought. As free from thought, you remain quiet. As with the thought of absence, if you think of the absence, it becomes another thought. Then I get stuck with the thought. So there will be no difference between the thought of a presence and the thought of... Therefore, minus Vedanta, even if you have great controls, you are within avidya, because I am thinking the absence. Even if I am a chitta vritti nirodha, a yogi always controls the thought. And he thinks of the absence of the thought. Thinks of the absence of the thought. When you think of the absence of the thought, you are only thinking. But absence should be, and presence of thought and absence of thought should be defined as your experience of your presence with the thought, or experience of your being free from thought. And even when we say experience of oneself with the thought, please understand, there again make a step. It is experience of myself unqualified by the thought. There is thought, but it doesn't qualify. It is freedom. Our experience of our being is free from the presence of thought or absence of thought. Or thought of the presence or thought of the absence. Because if the present thought doesn't qualify me, then the absence of thought also doesn't qualify me. Therefore, even there is thought, I am free from thought, and there is no thought also, I am free from thought. That is our anubhava. That is called the Paramartha Avastha. Fundamentally, that is what we are. One may remain ununderstanding it, that so what? Even if the water doesn't know I am water, does it become non-water? Ignorance doesn't affect the truth. Ignorance about the truth may create some problems, but it can't change the truth. Yes. Ignorance about the truth can give me musibats. Yes, I know. But neither that ignorance can change the truth, nor can the musibats change the truth. And therefore, one says, Paramarthavastayam yeshutru yeshutavyadi vivahara bhavaha pradarshate is shown. The freedom from the Paramartha drishti, freedom from the ruler-ruled relationship, all kinds of relationships, the absence of relationships is shown. Meaning the Shruti shows that the truth from its own point of view is free from all relationships. This is the topic. Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Ji. Thank you, Ji. We will have Sanskrit class. We want to have, or